A month before the wedding, my fiancé took me camping in the wilderness. Around 10 o'clock at night, he received a phone call and hurriedly said to me, "Maya, there's an urgent matter at the company, I have to rush back to handle it now." I nervously asked him, "But it's the wilderness out here, and it's still raining. Are you sure you can trust me, a woman, alone?" The one who responded to me was a distant silhouette. Not long after he left, a wild beast appeared, and I was so scared that I called him. The voice on the other end was a woman's. "Maxwell is in the shower, it's not convenient to take the call." At that moment, my mind went blank, unable to believe that my boyfriend of 3 years would betray me. Later, I braved the torrential rain in the middle of the night, traversing the jungle to avoid wild beasts, and Maxwell's phone was no longer reachable. As a result, I suffered from a severe cold, with a persistent high fever, and ultimately had to undergo an induced labor procedure, yet he didn't come to the hospital to see me even once. I know that this marriage cannot be realized. But after I crossed the sea to a foreign land, he regretted his decision. Lying on the hospital bed, my head felt dizzy, and the nurse's voice echoed in my ears. "Madam, you've been hospitalized for 2 days now. Has your family not come yet? That consent form for your miscarriage needs to be signed by them." After escaping death in the jungle, my high fever has finally subsided, and my consciousness has returned. "I'm sorry, doctor," I said, "but could you please wait a moment? I need to call my fiancé." I picked up my phone, and after unlocking it, the screen was still on the WeChat Moments page. I instinctively slid my finger and saw a post from Maxwell's secretary, Ella. "Whose boss is this, so thoughtful, buying me sanitary pads and boiling brown sugar water in the middle of the night?" The accompanying image shows Maxwell in a bathrobe, seriously cooking brown sugar water in the kitchen. It turned out that the reason he abandoned me that night was not because there was an urgent matter at the company, but because he went to take care of the secretary who was on her period. That night, he clearly could have waited for me to pack up and leave together, but he was so anxious that he didn't give me even a few minutes, otherwise, I wouldn't have. My heart really hurts, as if something is constricting it, making it hard for me to breathe. I silently liked a post and exited WeChat. Our 3 years of relationship, during our 3 years together, I knew he had loved me, and I loved him just as deeply. Ever since he hired a new secretary, everything has changed. I am no longer the person he is most anxious about. I wanted to give him a chance, so I started calling his phone. After a long time, the call finally connected, but before I could say anything, Maxwell's scolding voice came crashing down on me. "Maya, what are you making a fuss about? I've already explained it to you. There's nothing between Ella and me. She's talking about resigning because of that one like you gave her. If she leaves the position of the president's secretary, will you take it?" In the past, he clearly couldn't bear to speak to me so loudly, let alone scold me like this. The words I was about to say were forcefully swallowed back. It seemed that whether I told him or not no longer held any significance. "Take good care of your little secretary." After hanging up the phone, I forced a grim smile at the doctor and said, "Doctor, let me sign it myself." Before long, Maxwell's phone rang again. "Maya, since you've already gone back, why didn't you let me know in advance? You made me make a trip for nothing." After hearing what he said, I was really so angry that I laughed. It was one thing that he didn't know I called him so many times the night before, but it was another that it took him 2 days to remember leaving me all alone in the jungle. "Didn't you think to call me before you came to pick me up? What? Is that little secretary all you see now?" On the other end of the phone, Maxwell clearly paused for a moment, as if realizing that his previous words were a bit heavy, and his tone softened. "Since you're back, take good care of yourself. My company has been very busy lately, so I won't be going home for a while." "Fine, do as you wish." After hanging up the phone, I gently touched my lower abdomen, still aching faintly from the miscarriage, and silently made a decision in my heart. For more than a week in the hospital, Maxwell never showed up, nor did he call me again, and I didn't tell him about the miscarriage. This made my desire to leave even more resolute. On the day I was discharged from the hospital and returned home, Maxwell also came home. He saw my pale face and stepped forward to show concern. What have you been doing this week? You look so unwell. You're going to be a mother now, you should take care of yourself, not just for your own sake, but for the child in your belly. His gaze was fixed on me. Why do I feel like your belly has gotten smaller? This won't do, you need to eat more. When it comes to children, my heart aches sharply. I have not yet emerged from the sorrow of losing a child. Now you come to care about the child, but the child is already gone. When I first told Maxwell that I was pregnant, he was incredibly nervous. He said, Maya, you just focus on taking care of the baby, I'll handle everything else. But ever since he hired a little secretary, he has forgotten all these words. Maxwell, do you know that My next words were interrupted by the ringtone of his phone. Why are you so careless? I'm coming over right now. After hanging up the phone, Maxwell hurriedly walked out, but suddenly remembered something and turned back to explain to me. Ella accidentally fell and can't walk. I need to go see her, don't think too much about it. Well, you go ahead. I won't think too much about it, after all, lives are at stake. I said in a calm tone, with not a trace of anger in my eyes. Maxwell seemed unable to accept my sudden silence. After all, I used to ask him about his whereabouts quite a bit, and I had annoyed him several times with my questions. He looked at me deeply a few times, before turning to leave. I looked around the house where I had lived for a year. This was the wedding house that Maxwell had prepared for me. Everything inside was purchased by me, but it was all added according to his preferences. Not a single item belonged to me. Since I am no longer the most important person in his heart, there is no need to get married. I took out my phone and called my best friend abroad. After receiving my call, my best friend Lena was very excited. Maya, have you finally decided to join my team? Well, as long as you are still willing to take me in. What are you talking about? You, this design genius, are someone I can only wish for. Okay, then book me a plane ticket for half a month later. Isn't your wedding in half a month? There won't be any wedding. After comforting her for a long time, her best friend reluctantly hung up the phone. I met Maxwell at the gym, where he was working out with friends, and I was there as a temporary Sonda coach to train with him. When I first met him, he seemed very silent, as if he had been hurt in love. I am a talkative person, and as he came around more often, he gradually became familiar with me. Once, a guest asked me to practice Sonda, but he spent the entire time provoking me. When Maxwell saw this, he gave that man a severe lesson. I fell in love with him because of that one time, and he also promised me that he would be with me forever. Now I realize that promises can also expire. Maxwell returned home the next evening, exhausted. I sat on the sofa beside me, reviewing the materials. Since I wanted to return to the design world, learning was essential. Maxwell habitually picked up the cup on the table to drink water, and only when he brought the cup to his lips did he realize it was empty. He looked at me in confusion. Why is there no water in the cup? No matter when he came back before, no matter how late it was, he could always drink the hot water I handed him. Whenever I get drunk, I always prepare a bowl of hangover soup for him. But I don't want to do any of these things now. If you want water, pour it yourself, it's not like you don't have hands. Maxwell then realized that something was off with me. Maya, are you still making a scene? I told you, Ella and I are not what you think. She sprained her ankle yesterday. I remembered the moments that Ella posted last night. It's just a little scrape, look how nervous it made the boss. The accompanying image shows her bare heel covered with a band-aid. What he could say from his mouth indeed seemed very serious. Oh, I see. I didn't even glance at Maxwell. Maxwell stared at me again. Aren't you going for your prenatal checkup the day after tomorrow? I'll go with you. When I was discharged from the hospital, the doctor told me to come back for a checkup in 3 days. Let's go together then and clarify everything, including the cancellation of the wedding. Okay. The next morning, I got up and went to the dining room, where a plate of shrimp dumplings was set on the table. Maxwell saw me and said, "Get up, come over and eat your favorite shrimp dumplings." I waited in line for over an hour for this, and after I finish, I have to rush to deliver it to Ella. My face fell. Did you forget? I'm allergic to shrimp and can't eat it. Maxwell's face stiffened for a moment, showing embarrassment. Oh, then I'll go buy you another one. I don't need it, I'm going out soon and will buy it myself. Then be careful, I have important matters to handle at my company, so I'll be leaving first. I do have things to do. The people at the bridal shop just informed me that the wedding dress I had custom made has arrived. Since I want to end this relationship, that wedding dress no longer holds any meaning. I arrived at the bridal shop, and the staff approached me with a somewhat awkward expression. Miss Maya, I'm sorry, but the wedding dress you ordered has been taken by your fiancé for someone else to try on. At that moment, a voice came from inside. Maxwell, do you think this wedding dress looks better on me or on your fiancé? You look good in what you're wearing. Hearing this, I was stunned, and anger slowly crept into my heart. How could Maxwell do this? How could he let another woman wear the wedding dress I designed myself? I walked quickly inside, came to Maxwell's side, and questioned him, "What are you doing?" Maxwell quickly turned to look at me after hearing my voice, a hint of panic flashing in his eyes. Maya, what are you doing here? You ask me how I got here. Of course I came to the wedding dress shop to try on wedding dresses, but how could my wedding dress be on this woman's body? She walked up to me with a wronged expression, pulling at my arm. Maya, please don't blame Maxwell. I just thought this wedding dress was beautiful, and I couldn't resist the temptation to ask him to let me try it on. Seeing the provocation in Ella's eyes, I wanted to pull back the hand she was holding, but before I could even exert any force, she had already fallen to the ground. With a voice choked with grievance, she said, Maya, please don't be angry, I'll change out of the wedding dress and return it to you right away. Maxwell saw this and hurried over to help Ella, who had fallen to the ground, asking her gently, Ella, are you okay? Maxwell, I'm fine, you go comfort Maya and help her calm down, it wasn't intentional. Maxwell turned around, his gaze fierce as he looked at me. Maya, why have you become so jealous and competitive? Ella has already apologized to you, why did you still viciously push her down? Hurry up and apologize to Ella. Looking at the Maxwell in front of me, filled with thoughts and feelings for someone else, my heart still aches uncontrollably. After all, how can I say I don't care about someone I've loved for 3 years? I took a deep breath and looked at Maxwell with disappointment. If I said I didn't push her, would you believe me? Maya, can you not be so petty with a little girl? I held back the tears that were about to spill over. I won't admit to things I haven't done, nor will I apologize to her. Since she likes this wedding dress so much, I'll just give it to her. After saying that, I turned around and left without looking back. I had already decided to give him up, so what was the point of keeping that wedding dress? After returning home, I began to sort out the things I needed to take with me. I packed up more than half, and it came down to just 2 boxes. It was a little past 2 in the afternoon when I was still asleep, and in my daze, I heard the sound of someone opening the door. I thought it was Maxwell who had returned, so I got up and walked out of the room. When I saw Ella, my body stiffened for a moment, and I asked her, "What are you doing here?" She walked towards me with a proud look in her eyes. Of course, it's the key that Maxwell gave me. When she spoke, she deliberately raised the keys in her hand, and I happened to see the heart-shaped bracelet on her wrist. It was the latest bracelet on the market, symbolizing eternal unity, and it was also my favorite design. There is only this one on the market, and unexpectedly, it ended up on Ella's hand. My heart was completely chilled, and I said coldly, "Take what you need and leave quickly." Maya, you saw it today too, the one Maxwell loves now is me. You, his fiancé, have been eliminated. Be smart and get lost quickly, or I'll have to personally throw you out, and that would be embarrassing. I scoffed, you want to rise in status? Fine, let Maxwell come to me personally. As long as I am still his fiancé, you will always be the hidden mistress. You wait for me. Ella stormed off in anger. Before long, Maxwell's phone rang. Maya, I just asked Ella to come home to get an important document, and as soon as she got back, she was crying to me. Why did you scold her? I didn't expect Ella to go and tell on Maxwell, and she succeeded. I didn't curse at her, it was her words that were disrespectful to me, I just replied to her a few times. I know you must still be upset that she tried on your wedding dress without your permission, but she has already apologized to you. This matter is in the past. I'll bring you a gift tonight, so just stay at home and wait for me. In the evening, Maxwell really brought me a delicate gift box. His eyes were full of smiles. Maya, I bought you the bracelet you love the most. I opened the box, and after seeing the bracelet clearly, I threw both it and the gift box straight into the trash. I won't take something that someone else has worn. Maxwell's smile froze, and he looked at me with an incredulous expression. Maya, how did you become so unreasonable? It was clearly you who said you liked me that made you buy it. At this moment, I no longer want to endure. I said coldly, Maxwell, let's break up and cancel the wedding. No, Maya, what do you mean? Our wedding is in just over a week. Can it really be cancelled just because you say so? Are these all my problems? Think about it yourself, how long has it been since you truly cared about me? When I needed you, you were always by the side of that little secretary. You even gave her the keys to our house, did you ever inform me about that? If you no longer like me, please let me know in advance. I'm not someone who makes unreasonable demands, I would support your decision. Instead of letting Ella's arrogance grow and allowing her to come to my door to provoke me like this. After listening to me, Maxwell realized the changes I had gone through during this time, and that he had indeed gone a bit too far. He nervously said to me, Maya, Ella can be a bit willful at times, don't take her words to heart. I won't take it to heart anymore, but breaking up is not a joke. Maxwell looked at me again, his eyes filled with disbelief at what I was saying. Indeed, over the past 3 years, those who know us are aware that I am hopelessly in love with Maxwell, to the point that I quit my job as a kickboxing coach and became a housewife. If they say that Maxwell doesn't want me, they believe it, but if I were to leave Maxwell on my own, they would never believe it, no matter what. But when a person accumulates enough disappointment, even the things that were once important will be abandoned. I know you're still angry. Let's go visit your parents together after your checkup tomorrow. Didn't you always want me to accompany you back? That's right, we're about to get married, but he has never met my parents even once. Every time he agrees to go back with me, he changes his mind after promising. Let's talk about it tomorrow, I'm tired and need to go back to my room to rest. Alright, I'll help you back to your room. It's very normal for pregnant women to feel sleepy. Now, when I hear the words pregnant woman, my heart feels much calmer. I just wonder what his reaction will be when he finds out tomorrow that the baby is gone. The next morning, we arrived at the hospital, and it wasn't until we walked into the doctor's office that Maxwell realized and asked me, Maya, aren't we supposed to go for a prenatal checkup? What are you doing in the gynecology department? The child is gone, what's the point of prenatal checkups? I'm here for a follow-up. Maxwell staggered back 2 steps, his expression shocked as he asked me, what do you mean by that? What do you mean the baby is gone? You are clearly 4 months pregnant. The doctor who examined me this time was the same one from my last hospital stay. She couldn't hold back any longer and started scolding Maxwell, Sir, how can you call yourself a husband? Not long ago, your wife was admitted to the hospital after being caught in the rain and had a high fever that wouldn't go down. To save her life, we had no choice but to perform an abortion, and you were unreachable the entire time. Hearing the doctor finish speaking, Maxwell finally realized that our child was lost after he abandoned me alone in the jungle. With a face full of regret, he wanted to explain to me. Maya, let me explain. I really had something to do that night, and why didn't you call me when the accident happened? Thinking back to that night, I still feel a lingering fear. If it weren't for my slight foundation, there would have been 1 corpse and 2 lives lost by now. Who said I didn't call you? It was your little secretary who answered, and she said you were taking a shower and couldn't answer. Maxwell tried to recall what happened that night. When I got to the company that day, I was soaked through and went to take a shower, so why didn't you call me again later? That night, he was clearly busy making brown sugar water for the little secretary, yet now he lies to me, saying he's at the office. For that mistress, he has learned to lie. I called, but I couldn't get through even after trying more than 10 times. Maxwell then remembered that he only saw my phone number lying in his blacklist the next day, and at that time, he still felt something was off. He started to get nervous, grabbing my hand. "Maya, I'm sorry, I might have pressed the wrong key and accidentally deleted your number. I didn't mean to, please believe me." I looked at Maxwell with indifference. He was making excuses for Ella. I said, "It doesn't matter anymore." The doctor looked at Maxwell with a face full of disdain. "Miss Maya has run into bad luck for 8 lifetimes to have a husband like you. He won't be for long." After I finished speaking, I followed the doctor into the examination room for a checkup. After finishing the checkup, I stepped out to the hospital entrance, and my best friend's call came in. "Maya, I have completed all the onboarding procedures for you. Is there anything else you need? I can prepare it for you in advance." "No, I'll talk about it when I get there." After hanging up the phone, Maxwell anxiously asked me, "Maya, who were you just talking about calling? Where are you going?" "No one, you heard wrong. I don't want Maxwell to know that I'm leaving just yet. He's a domineering person, and I'm afraid he will try to stop me." Maxwell looked at me with a hint of disbelief, trying to read any signs of deceit on my face. "Really?" "Well, really," I replied with an unchanged expression. Maxwell, after seeing nothing on my face, said, "Then you go home and wait for me. I'll handle some things at the company and then come back to pick you up. Because my hometown is in another city, over 600 kilometers away by car, it takes 2 days for a round trip. It's quite normal for him to go back to take care of some matters." But after I got home, I waited until the sun went down, yet I still did not wait for him. It turned out that I no longer held any position in his eyes. Disappointment, once accumulated enough, would turn into despair. At that moment, I was completely disheartened by Maxwell. I pulled up the suitcase I had prepared long ago, threw away everything I had used, and left without looking back. If Maxwell cared about me, he would have noticed that the wardrobe, which used to be filled with my clothes, now has only a few left. Since I started tidying up, several days have passed, and he hasn't noticed at all, which is enough to prove that I no longer hold any position in his heart. In the middle of the night, returning to the home I hadn't visited in 2 years, seeing my parents with their heads full of white hair, my eyes became moist. My parents scrimped and saved their whole lives to send me to the best design university, but for Maxwell, I gave up my original dream. "Mom and Dad, I've let you down." Mom asked me with a worried face, "Maya, what happened? Didn't you say Maxwell was coming back with you?" From the moment I entered, my parents did not see another figure. The disappointment in their eyes was all too clear to me. "He won't come back to me anymore. I broke up with him, and I will also cancel the wedding." I also told them everything that had happened during this time. Mom hugged me tightly, her heart aching. "Maya, don't be sad. You deserve better. With us here, you have support." Yes, a home with parents is a harbor. At that moment, my phone in the bag rang. It was a call from Maxwell. I didn't want to answer, but my dad said, "Go ahead, I'll talk to him." "Maya, let me explain. I had an urgent matter to handle at the company, so I didn't have time to talk to you. I'm heading home now, and I promise to go back with you tomorrow." Hearing Maxwell's excuse made me both angry and amused again. On the way back, I clearly saw the moments that Ella posted. "Thank you, boss, for accompanying me home to visit my parents whom I haven't seen in a long time." The accompanying image shows Maxwell laughing and chatting with Ella's family. "Humph. Maya is already at home, and you don't need to come back with her. Our Jiang family cannot afford a son-in-law like you." Hearing his father's voice, Maxwell on the other end of the phone clearly paused for a moment. "Uncle, what do you mean by that?" "What else can I mean? Didn't Maya tell you we broke up? We agreed on that, so from now on, you have no relationship with our Maya." "No, uncle, let me explain. I will not break up with Maya, I love her. Maxwell's love is too vast for me to handle, let's not contact each other anymore. After saying that, I hung up the phone and blocked his number. After I hung up on Maxwell, he called my number several times, but he couldn't get through. It was then that he realized I wasn't joking about the breakup. He started to feel anxious and quickly opened the navigation app, searching for a long time before realizing he didn't have my mother's address. In the end, he angrily slapped the steering wheel, and to prove whether I was lying or not, he stepped on the gas and ran several red lights to get home. He rushed into our room, pulled open the wardrobe, and the closet that was once filled with my clothes was now completely empty. He still didn't believe it and ran back into the bathroom, where the vanity that had been filled with my cosmetics now only held his own things. He searched every corner of the house, but found none of the things I had used. He only saw the gift box I had discarded lying in the trash can. It all seemed as if there were no traces of my existence. Only at this moment did he truly realize that he was really going to lose me. He slumped helplessly to the ground, his eyes dull and lifeless, as if he had become a different person entirely. The day after I got home, I sent messages to each of my friends to tell them that our wedding was cancelled. Several friends who know both me and Maxwell have sent me questions, asking if I've lost my mind, since I have always loved Maxwell. How could I have called off the engagement? I also wish that I had really lost my mind, so that I wouldn't be hurt. Before long, Maxwell's mom must have caught wind of it. She called me. Maxwell's mom is usually quite nice to me, so I thought I might as well take this last call. Maya, I don't know what happened between you and Maxwell, but you are about to hold a wedding, and the invitations have already been sent out. Now suddenly saying you want to cancel, where does that leave the Schwe family? Don't make a fuss, just come back quickly, and I'll help you teach him a lesson. This matter will just pass. She is not my biological parent, and she cannot understand the pain I have endured. Everything she says is solely for the sake of her Schwe family. Aunt, I can no longer go back with Maxwell. Please just pretend you never knew me. The daughter-in-law you wanted, Maxwell has already found for you, but it is not me. No, you're carrying Maxwell's child now, so you should give birth to the baby first and then talk about it. It turns out that Maxwell hadn't told his mother about my miscarriage. After all, how could he dare to, considering that the child was indirectly killed by him as well? The child was killed by your son, don't you know? Let's not contact each other anymore. I hung up the phone without caring what the person on the other end was saying. After taking care of these matters, I sat in the yard with my mother, basking in the sun. Someone pushed open the front door of my house from the outside. I looked up and met Maxwell's gaze. He hurried over, squatting beside me and said, Maya, stop messing around, will you come home with me? Our wedding won't be cancelled, I've even informed them to expand the wedding plans. I want to announce to the whole world that you, Maya, are the only wife of me, Maxwell, for this lifetime. Does he still think I'm just messing with him? But I am incredibly serious, and I've made up my mind to break up with him. I pushed away Maxwell's hand that was gripping my arm. Maxwell, I'm not joking, and I've been very calm. It's over between us, can we at least keep some dignity for each other? Why do you get to say we break up just like that? What did I do wrong? I looked at Maxwell with a strange expression, wondering how he still had the nerve to ask such a question at this point. Some images from the past rushed into my mind. That day, I was playfully asking him, Maxwell, what would you do if I broke up with you one day? He gently scratched my nose with his hand. I will never give you the chance to say goodbye. What should we do if that day really comes? There will never be that day, I swear. He has made many vows, but in the end, they became the sharpest swords that hurt me the most. Alright, since you're not clear about it, I'll tell you. I searched through all of Ella's social media posts to show him. The more he looked, the worse his expression became. I never knew she would post something like that. But I really have no relationship with her, she is just my mentor's daughter, and my mentor asked me to keep an eye on her a bit more. I never thought about having anything with her. Maya, you have to believe me. And I believe she was just being a bit mischievous and never intended to interfere in our relationship. It was also my fault for not handling the situation well, and I unintentionally hurt you. I'm truly sorry. Hee, is that so? Since he doesn't believe it, I'll leave him with nothing to say. I presented the surveillance footage that I had intentionally kept to Maxwell, saying, after watching this, you won't still hold on to what you just said. What he was shown were the provocative words of Ella at home, as well as the surveillance footage from the bridal shop where Ella deliberately fell and then falsely accused him. After finishing, Maxwell took a few steps back, his expression one of disbelief. Maya, it's only now that I realize what kind of person she is. Wait for me, I'll go back and teach her a lesson. Our wedding will still take place as scheduled. Maxwell, there's no need for that. At this moment, you still haven't realized why I want to break up with you. Then let me tell you one by one, when you left me alone in the jungle, and I was trying to call for help but couldn't get through, you were busy buying Ella sanitary pads and boiling brown sugar water, and because of that, we lost our first child. That day you secretly let her wear my wedding dress and even believed that I pushed her to do it. You had originally promised to come home with me. I waited from day to night, but you chose to have a joyful dinner with her family instead. Alright, don't say any more. Maxwell interrupted me with a pained expression. It was not until this moment that he realized how much he had hurt me. All the things he had overlooked and the pain he had caused because of Ella flooded into his mind, making it impossible for him to accept. He struggled to control his emotions. Maya, I know I can't earn your forgiveness right now, but I beg you to wait for me, wait until I finish and come to take you home. Maxwell finished speaking and quickly left my house. Watching his distant figure fade away, my heart seemed to calm down a lot. It turned out that I no longer planned to love someone, and my heart felt so light. To prevent Maxwell from coming over again, I had my best friend book the flight in advance. In the second before boarding, I removed Maxwell from the blacklist and sent him a message. Then she turned off the phone, pulled out the SIM card, and tossed it into the trash can. Farewell, Maxwell, farewell to my 3 years of love. After Maxwell left my house and returned to the company, he called Ella into his office. After giving her a severe scolding, he also had her process her resignation. When he saw my message, I had already landed safely. When my best friend saw me, she gave me a big hug and said, I've really missed you. It's so great that you're here, I finally have company. I said to my best friend with red eyes, Lena, thank you for being willing to take me in. My best friend poked my forehead with her finger and said, look at you, silly. Love isn't everything, you still have my friendship. Yes, love may be priceless, but friendship is worth even more. I am about to start my new life, one that doesn't involve Shwe. After starting at the new company, I have been very busy every day. Some say it's true that a busy job can help forget many worries. Maxwell was slowly forgotten by me in the corner. Later, my best friend told me that Ella was upset with how Maxwell treated her. She criticized Maxwell online for abandoning her and even sold many of Maxwell's company's secrets to rival firms. Maxwell's company was thus greatly traumatized, and in the end, Maxwell, unable to contain his anger, sent Ella to the police station. After hearing all this, my heart was completely unmoved. What would happen between the two of them was no longer any concern of mine. 3 months after I went abroad, Maxwell came to visit. He held me tightly, sobbing as he confessed, Maya, I love you, I've always loved you. I've come to deeply understand my mistakes, and Su Luo has already been punished. Can you come home with me? I broke free from Maxwell's embrace and coldly told him, Maxwell, it's all too late. Let's not hurt each other anymore, okay? I've been doing just fine without you. Maxwell seemed frozen as if something had immobilized him, standing there in a daze. He did not expect that I would refuse him again this time, his eyes filled with disappointment and unwillingness. He shouted, Maya, I will die without you. Since losing the child, your life or death has nothing to do with me. I said it decisively and coldly. Maxwell's eyes were filled with tears, but he scoffed, good, very good, we're done. He walked away unsteadily, mumbling something that I no longer paid attention to. Later on, while driving in a daze, he got into a serious car accident and lost a leg as a result. I will no longer care, nor have I seen him again. After returning to the design world, I quickly stood out and won many awards, thus reaching the peak of my life. The story ends.